When war broke out and young Canadian men answered the call to rise to our colors, they did so very rapidly and graciously in maritime Canada, as we know. But so many of the stories are similar when you hear them. The young man went into one of the services. He joined one of them, and then the next thing you know, he had his training in a number of places, and then he went to Halifax, always Halifax, because that's where the big ships left from to go to the war in Europe, and they went off on the ships. But each one of those stories, each one of them was very special, and it disrupted a young life always. Usually they joined with great joyful anticipation of a big adventure. Some of them thought, oh dear me, I don't want to leave home. I don't want to leave the beginning of a career perhaps in farming or whatever I was doing. But all of them did go, and none of them are similar, although it sounds like they are. And today we have a very, very interesting gentleman with us, Mr. William Richmond Carter. And Bill saw service. Well, he's going to tell you all about it. I won't interrupt his story. First of all, we have to get you into this earth. You were born on, I believe, November 2nd. What year?
1917.
1917. Good. And you were born where?
In St. John City in New Brunswick.
New Brunswick. Yeah, I see. You started off in this life a New Brunswicker.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you grew up, where did you move? You moved away, I believe, from New Brunswick.
Yeah, we moved from St. John to Melbourne Square in Annapolis Valley.
In where?
In Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's near here. We're in Kingston.
Yeah, it's just a few miles from here, very few miles.
Melbourne Square. I just don't know it. That's probably the only place in Nova Scotia I don't know. Anyway, Bill, so you moved there. How old were you when you did that?
I was about 15.
Oh, I see.
I guess.
Yes. And so that was, you were getting on up into your teen years.
Yeah.
And so you went to school in Melbourne?
Yeah, went for 1 year.
Did you?
In Melbourne.
Yeah. And what grade did that bring you
10.
to? Grade 10. And then what year did you finish school?
34, I believe.
1934.
34.
So it's getting on up into, what did you do then?
Well, I worked, my father had like everyone else in the valley,
Yes.
had a big orchard.
Right.
And the main industry in the valley was apples.
Apples. Yeah, still is.
It still is, yes.
Yeah.
But I worked with him.
Yeah.
I worked on the farm or on the orchard business.
Yeah.
I worked in the warehouses in the wintertime, packing apples.
Packing to send away,
Yeah, and drove truck for an orchard for one of the warehouses.
Yeah.
And
that was sort of your life. Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful life.
And
now, you did that until, I guess, the war broke out in 1939.
Yes.
And you were still working in the orchard. And
And I had married in the meantime.
Oh, did you really?
Yes.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 18 when I was married.
My gosh, how old was your bride?
She was 18.
18, the two of you, 18 start. Boy, that's a good early start you got.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And did you have a family right away?
Yeah, we had, we had 2 daughters.
Yes.
And then in November of 1942,
Yes.
a 3rd daughter was born. And I
okay.
joined the Army in February of 43.
Okay, now before we get to that, I was supposed to ask you something about Ruby L.
Oh, Ruby L.
Yeah, what's Ruby L?
Well, when I lived in St. John, when I was growing up, my grandfather
Yeah.
lived in Melbourne Square, where I now live. The Rubiel was a coastal freighter. That
Oh.
was the name of the boat
Oh, yeah.
that traveled between St. John and the local coast, like
Yeah.
Port George.
Or yes, or Margaretville.
Margaretville and
or
so on.
someplace there, yes.
Harbourville. So the captain of the Rubiel was a friend of my father's and
Yeah.
also a friend of my grandfather's.
Yeah.
And so during holiday season from school, I mean,
Yeah.
if one of us or one of my brothers or I wanted to come over to visit my grandfather, we'd just go down and ask the captain if he'd bring us over.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
he would. He'd bring
Which
us
he would
right
do
to
it.
Margaretville.
Oh.
My grandfather would meet us,
Yeah.
bring us down to.
So
You know.
the Rubiel was your family ferry.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
Oh, that-
gratis free too.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's a great system to
and
go.
when we-
Now, before we get to the war, you moved to Utopia, I believe. Where's that?
Well, I didn't move there in that sense.
Ah.
Utopia was an army base.
Oh, hold on.
During the war.
So I see. I'm getting way ahead of us. Now, so you were married and you had your two daughters before you joined the army?
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
3 daughters. The third one was born a couple of months before I
Before you joined.
joined. Yeah,
And this is the year 1943 now we're in.
right.
Yes. So you've gotten married and you've brought into the world 3 little girls.
Yeah.
And now, what made you join the army? Was it you weren't called up or not?
Oh no, I wasn't called up.
No.
Well, when the war first started, or prior to that,
Yeah.
I had my father, along with his apple business, was a contractor,
Uh-huh.
construction man, and he decided that some of his children, some of his sons, should also be tradespeople. So
Oh, yes.
he
yeah.
took me under his wing, and
Yeah.
he taught me carpentry work,
Oh, I see.
and I worked with him for a couple of years after I was married.
Yeah.
There was more future in that than there was in picking apples.
Apples. You betcha. Yeah.
So I learned the carpentry trade.
Yeah.
And the war broke out.
Yeah.
Of course, they had to build some training camps.
Yeah.
So DeBert and
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Was the first
big
one.
Big base.
a big base. So I went up there and I got a job as a carpenter.
Yeah.
I worked there during the winter while that was being built.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the winter of 39-40.
Oh, yes. I see.
And it's a cold place to work doing carpenter work. or anything else.
Building a camp, I'll tell you.
And then in the spring I came back and I don't know just what I'd done there
Yeah.
for a while, and then Greenwood
Uh-huh.
Air Base
Yeah, so
was
you
the
did
next
work
thing
there,
on
did
the
you?
line. So I went to work at Greenwood,
Oh.
and I
See, now you're putting yourself very close to the armed forces by doing all
That's
this,
right,
aren't you?
yes.
Yeah.
and I worked at Greenwood while that was under construction, and I went from there when that finished, or
Yeah.
my job finished there. I went to Halifax, and I worked on another army base down
Oh.
there.
Yeah.
And by the time that was finished, it was for the winter of 42,
Oh.
42, 43.
Yeah.
So the bases were all built.
Yeah.
Where my work as carpentry work was getting more
Yeah.
scarce at then.
Yeah.
So I said, well, it's time I get in the army. So I went and joined the army.
Yes. Now, did you join with friends or anything, or just on your own?
No, just on my own.
Just on your
I
own.
just went
Okay.
down.
Now, where'd you join the army? Did you go to Halifax?
No, I went to Kentville.
To Kentville.
And put my name in there and
Yeah.
had my medical and all that stuff
Yeah.
that you go through.
Yes. Yeah.
And once I got that part done, they sent me to Halifax
Right.
to the armories or somewhere down there,
Yeah.
and they gave me I had a uniform actually,
Yeah.
and I signed some more papers, had some more medicals, and
Well, this kind of thing, as I said in my introduction, this kind of thing was similar.
Yeah.
Everybody went through this.
Everybody.
Then they sent you, and no matter what you were going to do, carpentry or if you're going to be an angel, they sent you to march and learn how to march and lift a gun and so on. So I guess you went through that too.
Well, I had gone through that ever since I was 12 years old. Actually.
Oh, because you were in the militia, weren't you?
I was in the militia, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And the cadets first, and then the militia.
Yes, we left that out. We breezed past that when we were doing
That
early life.
I knew marching drills and rifle drills and all that kind of stuff. But I still had to go through it again after I joined the regular forces.
Yeah. So where'd you do that now?
I went to Fredericton.
To do that, yes, to take basic training.
Took basic training in Fredericton in the winter again.
Oh, my.
And that also was a very cold part of the world. This part of the world, anyway.
Yeah.
But I survived.
Good. And when did you go to Utopia?
Well, from Fredericton, when I finished my basic training, it was spring.
Yes.
Then, in 43.
Yeah.
And Utopia was just under, they were just completing the construction of Utopia.
And where is it?
It's between St. John City and the American border.
Oh, it's in New Brunswick.
Yeah, in New Brunswick.
Right. Okay. Now, you lived in H huts. What are H huts?
They're barracks built in the form of an H.
Oh, yeah.
With the sleeping quarters here,
along sides
dormitories,
of the H.
and the crossbar that joined them together is where the washrooms were.
I see. Right. Okay, so now, did you go into the Army in any department, such as carpentry or something, did you?
Well, I listed my trade, my civilian trade as carpentry.
Did you?
Yeah. But I went in just as same as anyone else. Just another body with a uniform on.
Right. Yeah. But did you get into carpentry at all?
Well, yes, after I finished in Utopia.
Yeah.
After I finished advanced training there, they sent me to, although I was a carpenter by trade, the only way it could be put on the books, on the records, I had to go take a course in carpentry.
In carpentry, yes.
And so they sent me to St. John. I went to the vocational school in St. John City again.
Yeah.
And I spent a couple of months there, and it was almost like a vacation.
I bet you. To you it would be.
Yeah.
Now, what would your... you have a family now, and where are they? They're at home?
Yes.
Where? In...
Three of them. One of them two of them live right in Melbourne Square.
Ah.
And the two youngest ones. And the third one lives in Morden area, and on the mountain there in the bay.
Yeah. Now, you were a private in the Army.
I always, when I went in, and then I got the only confirmed rank I got was Lance Corporal.
Okay. Now, answer me this. Your pay wasn't too great as a private, I was going to say. And did you get anything extra for being a carpenter or going into that?
Yeah, well, after I went to vocational school and I took my carpentry course, I was given the test, and then I was given a tradesman's pay then.
What was that?
50 cents a day.
Oh my, that's they must have called you the millionaire after you got that.
Yeah, we could get
Now,
right up there.
so all told, what I'm getting to is, all told, you got how much money would you say?
Well, after I got my trades pay, I
Yeah.
made $2 a day.
$2 a day. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you what part of that did your poor family sitting at
Oh,
home?
they got the biggest part.
Did they?
It was consigned. If I remember right, 75% of it was consigned to my
to
wife,
home. Oh, yeah.
and the other 25%, which was about 50 cents a day or something,
Was given to you.
was given to me.
Yeah. Well, that was okay. You could survive.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were all found in the army. You
Yeah.
ate on the army.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
I
And they
was
clothed you
fed
and
and
everything.
clothed and
Yeah.
everything. So
But in the meantime, I so wondered, how families made out on this meager pay suddenly that they got when the main breadwinner was taken away from them. Now they're left, and I suppose they did all right, did they?
well, yeah, the women staying at home, trying to bring up the kids.
Three kids, yeah.
They had to learn to be very careful of how they
Careful.
spent the money.
Oh, I bet they did.
And
Yeah.
of course, a dollar bill was worth a lot more then
It was.
than it is now.
Now, so anyway, you get to the point where you've been trained, and what was when you said advanced training? What did that mean?
Well, once you get through your basic training,
Yeah.
you go to, like in my case, to Utopia.
Yeah. Oh, and did the carpentry.
And no, not as a carpenter. I do one as a soldier,
Uh-huh.
as a private,
Yeah.
and your training is more advanced. It's more technical. You learn more about the guns, the weapons you're going to use.
I see. It's more ready for combat
Yeah.
than basic. Yeah. Okay. Now, did you at any time did they tell you were going to be shipped overseas or?
Oh, I knew that when I joined up.
Oh, did you?
I joined up when I joined the army.
Yeah.
I signed for overseas.
Did you? Oh, so that was.
So
Now, what year are we in now? After you've been trained and
for 43.
43.
Yeah.
And when did you go overseas?
I went overseas in
43 or 4?
40. I lose track here.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter.
I believe it was in the
43 or 4.
late fall of 43.
43.
Yeah.
You went overseas, and you went over on a ship, of course. Do you remember the ship?
The Isle de France.
The Ile-de-France. Oh, pretty ship.
Yeah.
Or she was before they made her a troop ship. How many went with you on that?
About, I believe there was close to 5,000.
You didn't
Like
get your
sardines
meals
in a
on
can.
time, I would say.
Pardon?
You got your meals at odd hours then.
Yeah, yes, if
Yeah.
you've got meals.
Yeah, a constant lineup.
Yeah.
Where'd you land?
Landed in Greenock in Scotland.
Scotland, and then went to
Helmsley in Yorkshire.
Helmsley. Oh, I haven't heard of that one. No,
And that was one of the camps over
yeah.
there.
What unit were you with? What regiment?
Well, I was at that time. I wasn't with the unit. I was with just another troop,
I see.
trooper,
Right.
another soldier, and
Yeah.
I still had to be
Assigned to
assigned
yeah.
to a regiment.
Right.
The regiments were already in England,
Yeah.
born,
Right.
so I was.
I see. You
A
were sent to
replacement,
one of them.
sort of,
Yeah,
yeah.
replacement. Yeah. So
So I was. I stayed there at Helmsley for a couple of months until I was given the consignment to the Black Watch,
to Black Watch. Ah.
the Black Watch Regiment.
They didn't
They
expect
were-
you to wear a kilt, did they?
No, I didn't wear a kilt. They didn't.
No.
The only people in the watch that wore kilts were the bandsmen.
Oh, yes.
and they only wore them on
on parade.
parades.
Yeah. Now, I'm supposed to ask you, what's the story about Oak Post mean?
Oak.
I saw that in your regiment.
When I was at the Helmsley, I worked in something to do. I worked in the carpentries. Well, I worked in the shop
Yeah.
with other tradesmen,
Yeah.
and whatever maintenance or whatever they wanted done. And there were several of us decided that we got tired of just doing what the Army told us to.
Yeah.
And we decided we should build something
Yeah.
and souvenirs.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We had all kind of equipment there to work with,
Yeah.
except wood.
Oh.
So
You had all the saws, all the hammers, but no wood.
no wood. So the camp that I was in, the Army camp, was on an estate that belonged to a Lord Middleton, and a big English estate, all fenced in with beautiful big English oak posts
Oh.
and rails on it.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd like to have some real good wood to make some
There it was.
odds and ends with. So we
There
took
it
our
was.
saws out one day and we sawed down one of those posts. And we figured nobody would notice it.
Yeah.
But they had
You're very trusting that no one would notice the whole post gone.
so we patched it up with something else, I guess.
Yeah.
And we took the post in and sawed up in smaller pieces and made little odds and ends, little trays and so on the lathe, and little bowls. And
Did his lordship ever come and say, "Where's my post"?
yes, he did. He did. He didn't, but he had well, we call him the major domo.
Ah.
I guess he was kind of a state manager or something.
Yeah.
And he'd dress himself in his riding clothes and looked very official. And he'd get on his horseback and he'd drive around the perimeter
Of the estate.
of the estate and checking.
Yeah.
And he drove around one day and he found that strange post in there.
The missing post. Did he? Yeah.
So he knew that the only people that could have taken it were probably those Army characters that were there.
Sure.
He'd come to the base, to the camp,
Yeah.
and making inquiries at the gate.
Yeah.
And the fellows at the gate knew where the post was, but they didn't want to get us in trouble, so they sent a runner, sort of,
Yeah.
told us to hide that stuff because the major domo was looking for it. So we hid it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he showed up, and they let him in. Finally, they kept him occupied
Until they got it well hidden. Yeah.
to give us time to hide it.
Yeah.
And then they brought him to the shop, and he looked through the shop. He couldn't find any. Oh, we even swept the floors to get rid of the
So
sawdust.
there'd be no sawdust. Yeah. Very funny. I can see
So
all that happening.
He knew. I'm sure he knew where it was, what happened to him.
Yes, I'm
but he
sure
couldn't
did.
find it. So
He knew it, but he couldn't get the proof.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
He couldn't find the smoking gun, as they say. Now, sir, there also in your resume, there's CWAC helmets.
Oh my.
That's the
Yeah, before they took us to the south coast and held us there waiting to go on a boat to go to France.
Yeah.
It seems that, well, they confined us to barracks one night and wouldn't let us off the camp grounds at all.
Oh.
And we found out why. That they told us that a couple CW Quark's Army girls
Yeah.
had been involved in an assault or something
Oh.
downtown.
Oh.
And by other troop, not our guys,
No.
but another regiment. There were that part of England was all army.
Yes, yeah.
They were
Oh,
every
yes,
regiment.
they were everywhere.
Yeah,
Yes, they were crawling with armies.
Yeah.
This is.
and Navy and Air Force and so on.
Yeah.
But anyway, the girls themselves, they get back to apparently they get back to their barracks. They reported what had happened. The other girls, their friends, decided that they couldn't have that happen, so they just took their helmets and put them in their fists and wrapped their chin strap around their head. It makes quite an efficient weapon.
Oh my goodness! It does.
And they
so.
went downtown by
Yeah.
a lot of them, I guess half of the girls' unit,
Yeah.
or maybe all of them.
Yeah.
They went down looking for anybody wearing that regimental stripe.
Stripe. Oh.
And
And then they bounced them with
whether they were guilty or not, most of the guys didn't even know what they were
it was
getting
all
slugged
about.
for.
No?
But I don't know if they got the ones that caused the trouble
Or not.
or not.
But they had a good go at fighting them. Oh dear, it must have been a lot of surprise fellas.
Yeah, there's a lot of bloody noses too, I think. But
Yes. Now came the day, with all this training and helmet beating people with helmets and everything. When all that was over, you finally went to France, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, the D-Day had come and
Now,
gone.
did you go to Aldershot first, or?
Well, this was in Aldershot where that happened.
Oh, where that happened, right.
And so, yeah, the Black Watch D-Day had come
Yeah.
and gone.
Yeah.
The Black Watch didn't go to France for between 2 and 3 weeks after D-Day.
D-Day, oh yeah.
They had a year or so before, there was a raid made at Dieppe.
Yes, there
The
was.
Black
indeed.
Watch had sent a company of men,
Yeah.
lost about 80% of them.
Oh my.
So when D-Day,
Yeah.
they had one treatment, so they were just held in England.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks later, the regiment went to France,
Yeah.
and immediately lost a lot of people.
Did they immediately again?
Yes, shortly, or
Yeah.
in Falaise Gap and Caen. and
Oh, of
places like
course,
that.
yeah. Right up from Juno Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I went over a couple of weeks, about 10 days,
Yeah.
or 2 weeks after the regiment went.
Yeah.
I went and I joined them
Yeah.
over in France,
Yeah.
by Dunkirk.
You joined them at Dunkirk. Okay. Yes, and they just had a mauling before that, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were kind of a replacement.
A replacement, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
how'd you feel about that, Bill?
I was
Pretty apprehensive, I guess.
well, no, not really. I knew what it was about,
Yeah.
but well, I guess I was like most of them. I thought, well, it happened to somebody else. It's
But
not
not
going to
to
happen
you.
to me.
Isn't it funny? Most all the fellows thought that.
Yeah. Well, you pretty much had to.
Had to. Oh,
Or you go
that's the
nuts,
only.
you know.
That's the only way you could think.
Yeah.
You thought any other way,
They're
then
Thinking
was
the
no
bad
use.
part of it,
yeah,
it's hard.
yeah. So anyway, now you're over there and you're about to go into the thick of it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get,
Yeah. And what was your job? You were simply an infantryman.
yeah. At
Yeah.
that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And so, no carpentry going on there.
no.
No.
I went. I was attached to B Baker Company, as they called
Yeah.
it, and assigned to a platoon,
Yeah.
and it the war went on, and we went on.
You
And
went on, yes, and you moved. And,
And we
now,
moved.
what was the living conditions like? That's a foolish question, but we'd like to hear about it.
they weren't very
They were
good.
just terrible. I know the answer. But,
Well, you done the best you could.
yeah, you carried that big blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And first thing that most people did, they threw the respirator away.
Away, right.
And as that was just a big bulky thing on your chest.
Yeah. Get in
And,
the way. Make it hard to march. Hard
Yeah.
to-
And it was awkward. So
Yeah.
everybody just threw 'em.
Yeah.
If you had any heavy clothing,
Yeah.
you threw that away.
Too. Yeah.
You just kept the bare essentials, what
Sure,
you needed.
Yeah.
You kept your weapon and your ammunition and
Did
a
you?
small
Yeah.
pack,
Yeah.
and that was on your shoulders.
Yeah.
That was about the size of it. And
Yeah.
your weapon gear.
Yeah. Now, what time of year was this? This was summery.
This was
Yeah.
summer.
So you wouldn't need heavy clothes.
No. And summer.
And you carried your own food with you, your rations.
Yeah,
K
well,
rations
we carried
usually?
K rations, and
Did you carry water?
we had a water bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Canteen.
But no wine, except when you stumbled
Well,
on it.
not. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah, it wasn't an issue. No. That's very fun.
If we found it, why then you had it.
Yeah. Now, everybody ran into snipers at that time. Did you?
Oh yes, there's snipers everywhere.
Yeah.
At
Yeah. Boy, that was a very proficient weapon for them, wasn't it?
yeah.
Because one sniper could hold up a regiment
Yep.
just about for days. Yeah.
It,
Until they got him.
They'd when the Germans moved back, they always left snipers behind them
Yeah.
just to harass the
The
Allied troops
as they
moving
came up.
ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would take, well, a sniper under, he'd be hidden, of course,
Yeah.
and in a building, or in one case a tower, or smokestack,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
wherever he'd be at cover.
Yeah.
And he would take out the first, maybe he'd get time to take out, he'd take out two,
Yeah.
maybe three
Yeah.
of the leading
Chaps. Yeah.
chaps.
Yeah.
The regiments marched, you didn't march in a group like
No.
on a parade
No.
square.
No. No.
You were separated and
Yeah.
lined on both sides of the
On
road,
Yeah.
and there was about 5 paces in between each man.
Man, right.
And so, in case of shell fire, or if a
Yeah.
shell landed, it would get a few, but it wouldn't get a whole group.
Everybody. Yeah.
And you learn that pretty fast too.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. But
Yeah.
no, the snipers were. They were. Well, I suppose if it hadn't been reversed,
Yeah.
we would have done the same thing. Probably.
Oh, quite. Yeah.
Been the
It
conqueror.
was him or me.
Yeah,
that was
that's
the
size of it,
motto,
yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
And
Now, you had one story about a sniper and a wine cellar.
and
Can you tell us that? Sniper and a wine cellar.
well, the sniper, we were moving up to a town or
Yeah.
a small city or whatever
Yeah,
they
yeah.
call it. Their ideas of towns and cities are different than ours.
Yeah.
They're usually a lot bigger.
Bigger, right? Yeah.
And but anyway, we're moving up through that place, heading somewhere. And there's a big, tall smokestack in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
and order came down the line to go to ground, go to cover.
Yeah.
There's a sniper somewhere in front of us. I didn't know just where,
Where, right?
but he had taken out 2 or 3 guys in the front of the column,
Yeah.
and you went to cover
Yeah.
next to a building or in a ditch or wherever,
Yes,
you could
you
find.
can find it. Yeah.
And they determined that he was in the smokestack.
Oh, yeah.
So it was hard to get him out of there. So unless somebody wanted to try to climb up after him,
and,
that
whack
wouldn't be
him
a
on
good
the head or
idea.
something.
So,
Yeah.
so they brought a tank up, a Sherman tank, from behind us, and
Yeah.
the tank come up the road, stopped, and they had been informed what the problem was. They just lined up on the bottom of the smokestack,
and boom.
boom.
Yeah,
And the smokestack came down, and the sniper came with it, apparently. So,
and then on you fellas went.
and on we went.
Now, wait a minute. You wound up. Now, is this in Belgium that
This is
we're
in
talking about?
Belgium. Yeah.
Belgium, yeah. So you wound up in Belgium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you were near a canal, were you? Or well,
Yeah,
you must have been
we,
in Belgium. It was nothing but canal.
We walked for 3 days. Excuse me, just a moment.
Yes, surely.
We walked for 3 days
Yeah.
and moved us from one destination to another.
Oh my.
We started in France,
Yeah.
and we ended up in Belgium. We crossed
Yeah.
the border somewhere,
Yeah.
and we hiked through there. We come to a little village.
Yeah.
There was a wooden bridge. I can recall the bridge, just a small stream, and a wooden bridge over it.
Yeah.
So we walked across the bridge into the town,
Yeah.
or the small town, just cobblestoned,
Oh.
and the roads were.
Yeah.
So they let us get in. We knew it had been the commanding, the senior people
Yeah.
knew that it had been, it had been occupied by German troops.
Yes, yes.
And we expected trouble when we went there, but
Yeah.
it was vacated.
Oh.
The civilians were there, or some of them,
Yeah.
but the Germans had moved back.
Yeah.
Of course, before they moved back, they had already set up their mortars for that town,
Right.
knowing that we were coming.
Coming, yes, yeah.
And we went across the bridge. They let us get into our part of the unit, get into the town. And then they opened up with their mortars.
Oh, wow.
And they weren't trying to hit the buildings. They just lined them, fired them right down through the
cobblestones.
cobblestones.
Yeah.
Cobblestones shattered,
Yeah.
and the shrapnel,
Oh.
stone and steel, both
decimated you guys.
flying. And of course, we went down,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys picked up shrapnel,
Yeah.
and we were laying next to a building, or in a gutter there,
Yeah.
and both sides of the street,
Mhm.
and they'd fire, then they'd reload or something, there'd be a pause, we'd get back up on our feet and just nicely start to move, it would happen again,
Yeah.
back to the ground.
Back to the ground again. Yeah.
And that carried on until we were waiting for orders from our own people, our commanding officer, either do something. We couldn't
Yeah.
stay there forever.
Yeah.
And so while we were waiting, I heard some comments up in front of me, and looked up, and there was a woman, an elderly woman. I was probably she looked to be about 60, probably grandmother,
Yeah.
and a little girl about 9 or 10 years old,
Yeah.
walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk, carrying a pail of water and a dipper, and taking it to the
To the
troops.
troops.
To the troops.
Oh my
They wanted to
goodness.
drink.
And all this sniper business going on.
Yeah, and
Oh, my
there had been a lull in the firing
Yeah.
when that happened.
Oh my.
But the guys were
Yeah.
were telling them to get in the house, get it undercover, go in a basement,
Yeah.
because
But instead of that, they kept on with the water and the
just
ladle.
kept coming.
The ladle. Isn't that a wonderful story? My gosh.
So the mortars started coming in again, and somebody shushed them into a building, and I never saw them again, but I guess they were,
Yeah.
as far as I know, they survived, but
Yeah.
things like that, they stick in your mind.
They stay in your mind forever, don't they? Did you ever find your wine cellar?
Our wine cellar.
Yeah.
We found that.
Did you?
We ended up in the canal. I think it was the Albert Canal, if I remember right.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And we walked into that, and we ended up on the edge of the canal. The rifle guys
Yeah.
were given certain locations where they had to be.
Sure.
Dug in, right on the bank almost of the river. There had been a big steel bridge across the river.
Yeah.
The Germans were on the other side of the river in pillboxes.
Gee.
And
how wide is this river now?
it's probably
70 feet.
50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
Probably 60 feet or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a canal.
Yeah.
And so we dug in, and in the morning we dug in right in the bank, the river exposed. So in the morning my platoon, when it got daylight enough so we could see, we realized that there was a big house, almost a mansion, size, right beside us.
Oh.
And so we thought that'd be a lot better place to be in there than laying out there in the bank of a river.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we went into this. We just our lieutenant, thought that was a good idea too, or we persuaded them it was.
Yeah.
So we went in the house.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there. We checked it all out. There was no one in it. But it had been occupied apparently by a German, looked like a German high command.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the evidence was all there. So while we were checking it out, we checked the basement, of course. And in the basement we found a wine cellar. And it was full of wine.
Was it?
All kinds of wine.
Oh.
And so that,
that was
we
a
figured,
happy discovery.
Yeah, so spoils of war, sort of.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So
you all had to go at that.
We all had to go at that. There was, if you want a red wine, there was red wine. If you want a white wine, there was some of that. If you wanted Calvados, which was a hard liquor.
Yeah,
there
that was there too.
Oh
my gosh!
So we tried it.
Yeah.
And the word get round during the day. We were there for about 3 days, I believe.
Yeah.
And the word kind of get out to some of the other
fellas, so they'd come around.
So at night time, once it got dark, they'd come to visit. And they'd leave with a bunch of wine.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting few days.
Yeah. Now, were you near Nijmegen during any of this?
Yes, we were in Nijmegen.
That's where you were, yeah. Okay.
No.
Now, this happy party and the wine and everything came to an end, though. You got nicked, I believe.
I got hit first. I was wounded twice, but the first time was shortly after they knocked down in fact, that following day after they knocked down the fire,
yeah,
get rid of the sniper, they took my company was sent on up through a field.
Mm-hmm.
There was a brook, a stream in it.
Yeah.
Not a brook, quite a good-sized stream.
Yeah.
The banks were high, and the stream was low.
Yeah.
And there was a road, a crossroad above it, at the end of that stream.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been sent to go up to that crossroad and make a turn
Yeah.
and head to a intersection.
Mm-hmm.
The intersection were occupied by German troops, and it was an important
intersection. Yeah.
And the Allied command had to take that intersection in order to get our vehicles through. And it was so they sent my company up through the crossroad to the little road leading to the intersection.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the unit went up, circled around a different route.
Oh, yeah.
We went up through, we waded the stream to stay out of sight, or not quite out of sight, but better than walking across an open field.
Yeah.
And so we walked up through the stream, and it was sometimes it was up to your knees, sometimes it was up above your waist.
Oh,
And but we got up to the end, but in the beginning we weren't aware of it, but before we got very far we were.
Yeah.
The Germans were on both sides of it. They were in the fields, dug in.
Oh, my.
So we went in between them.
Oh, that wasn't a good move.
They just closed that stream off behind us, so we couldn't get back out again.
Yeah.
So they had it boxed in there. So we come to the road eventually, but they harassed us all. This was during the night, of course.
Yeah.
And they gave us trouble all night.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we lost during the night was our signaller.
Oh.
Each unit had one signaller with a unit with a signal system. We lost him, and we lost the machine.
Mm.
So we got to the road. It was still dark.
Yeah.
It was a built-up road.
Yeah.
And the Germans were on one side. They were on both sides of us. They were behind us. And they were in front of us. and it was getting daylight.
Yeah.
So I remember laying on the side of that built-up road.
Yeah.
Sort of. And throwing grenades across the road to the other.
Oh, yeah.
To the other side.
Yeah.
They threw their grenades
back at you. Yeah.
But we had a little advantage over them there because we had Mills bombs with a 6-second fuse on them.
Oh.
They had what they call potato mashers with a long handle
on them. Yeah.
And that had a I think around a 25-second or 30-second fuse. So it would come over, and if it landed close to you, you had time to pick it up and throw it back. They didn't have that advantage with ours, because we'd pull the pin and cut it, and throwing grenades across the road to the other.
Oh, yeah.
To the other side. Yeah. They threw their grenades
back at you. Yeah.
But we had a little advantage over them there because we had Mills bombs with a 6-second fuse on them.
Oh.
They had what they call potato mashers with a long handle
on them. Yeah.
And that had a I think around a 25-second or 30-second fuse. So it would come over, and if it landed close to you, you had time to pick it up and throw it back. They didn't have that advantage with ours, because we'd pull the pin and count 1, 2, 3, and then throw it.
Then it would explode.
It exploded quite often right in the air.
Yeah, sure.
But close to the ground. So
yeah.
It was coming daylight, and we knew that we had to get out of that that place, or they just
Yeah.
we'd be
Yeah.
annihilated.
Yes, surely.
And the company commander decided there's a big barn in front of us
Yeah.
and a farmhouse, and so he sent word up and down the line to us that when he come on his feet and waved or fired, some of us were to head for the barn and some for the house,
Yeah.
depending on just where you were
Yeah.
laying. The barn was right in front of me, so it just about the crack of dawn,
Yeah.
he come up on his feet and he let a yell out of him, and everybody come up on their feet that could. We
To go
got
either
our
at the house
wounded
or the
with
barn.
us, and
Yeah.
we went across the road, and the
Yeah.
Germans, they don't fight that way.
No.
Or they didn't. They had a different
System.
system, and
Yeah.
they fought according to their rules,
Yeah.
not ours, because
Yeah,
they
that's
thought
right.
we were Indians anyway
Yeah.
and criminals.
You're right. Of course they did.
So I can remember going across the road
Yeah.
and see those big helmets of theirs
Oh, yeah.
laying in the ditch right in front
Oh,
of me.
right in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So we ran right over them, dropped a
Oh.
few grenades on the way,
yeah.
and ran right across them
Ah,
and got in the building before
Did
they
you?
realized what was
what
going
were
on.
you doing? You know? My God.
I got in the barn.
Yeah.
The barn was facing the narrow, the gable end of it was facing,
Yeah.
but the big barn doors was facing the road.
Yeah.
And there was nothing in the barn, just a little bit of chaff on the floor,
Yeah.
and there's no partitions or nothing. It was just an open building, quite big. And the major and an officer that was still with us,
Yeah.
they were in the house.
Oh.
I think there were 13 of us in that barn.
Gee, what?
And so we just sniped back and forth.
Yeah.
There was a big turnip field that looked like in front of us, on the other side of the road, and you'd see the turnips. You'd see the
Move.
They'd
from
move.
The shot.
They were on built-up rows,
Oh, yeah.
and they were crawling in between the rows, apparently.
So you could see the turnip. Yeah.
And you just watch and you see a turnip move,
And
and
then
you
boom.
just have something to shoot at. You just lower your
Yeah.
And that went on for, I know, an hour or so,
Yeah.
and a couple hours maybe.
Yeah.
And just sniping back and forth, and they'd snipe at the door and try to put a bullet through the walls with
Oh, right.
machine
Yeah.
guns and so on.
Yeah.
And after a while, we saw they brought up a mobile cannon,
Yeah.
an 88 millimeter cannon.
Cannon. Oh, yeah.
They were mounted on
Yes.
this case. They brought it up, and they were deadly things. They fired them just like a rifle.
Rifle, I know.
And but out of range of our rifle, they also had a
Right.
steel thing in front of them
Yeah.
to protect the gunners.
Yeah.
And they set that up right across down in the field.
Yeah.
Too far for us to get at it,
Sure.
to stop it, and
Yeah.
they just lowered the barrel
And banged away.
And
Yeah.
let
Oh,
a shell come, and it took the roof off of the barn,
Oh, boy.
and it hit the ridge.
Yeah.
So we were watching them and they just lowered their barrel a
Yeah.
little. We knew where the next one was going to be,
Yeah.
and it was.
That was.
And it came out through the door.
Yeah.
The door just,
Oh,
the whole
blew
front of
up.
the barn just exploded.
Oh, my gosh.
And we had gone back as far as we could towards
Yeah.
the other opposite end, and kind of protected our eyes a little bit and waited, because there was nothing for us to do.
No, you could no
Yeah.
place to go.
No. So I come to, it knocked me down, of course,
Yeah.
and it must knock me out, because
Yeah.
when I opened my eyes,
Yeah.
I couldn't see anything, but I
Oh.
thought I was blind.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was just chaff and dirt in my eyes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I stirred the water and I rubbed them,
Yeah.
and I could hear the barn was on fire.
Yes, yeah,
And the barn was burning.
yeah.
Chaff was burning, and
Oh, my goodness.
there was no sound, no one around me. I called,
Yeah,
and I got no answer at first.
yeah.
So I figured, well, I'm the only one.
One left.
So,
yeah.
but it was filled with smoke,
Ah,
of course, and I couldn't see.
yeah.
I couldn't see the wall.
Sure, sure.
But I knew that when I had covered my head and with my arms, I was standing up.
Oh,
That the door, the personnel door, the farmer get in his barn from the house,
Yeah,
was right close to me on my left side. There was a chance it was still there. And so they were just lacing through the barn with machine gun fire,
my
crossfire,
gosh, yeah.
waiting for somebody. If anybody survived, stand up, they'd slice you in two. So I knew better than to do that, so I crawled
Yeah,
until I hit the wall,
yeah.
and
Then you found the door.
then I found the door 'cause the
Yeah.
smoke was going out,
Oh, yeah.
being sucked out. So
Sure.
I just and I had picked up some shrapnel from
Did
the
you?
explosion
Oh, yeah. Where was it? In your
in my
shoulder? Or
shoulder,
chest?
my arm, and
Yeah. Oh,
so
Lord,
on. Just it seemed to get me in this
yeah. Right.
area, and so I got to the door, and once I got there, I could see through the smoke. I could see the farmhouse.
Yeah.
The trouble was to get to that farmhouse.
Farmhouse, sure,
It's just a little ways away.
Oh, my, yeah.
So I knew I couldn't stay in the barn. So
Yeah.
I said, well, I'll head it out. So about that time, I heard somebody in back of me moaning and groaning
Yeah.
and asking calling to his mother.
Oh, my gosh.
So I
Oh,
thought, well,
wow.
God, somebody's hurt. I can't,
Yeah.
I don't know how what goes through your mind at a time like that, but I knew that man, that guy needed help.
Yeah.
So I went back.
Oh.
And I found him. I followed
Yeah.
his voice, and I
Yeah.
found him, and I dragged him over to the door.
Ah.
By that time, the stretcher bearers had
Oh, they
come
turned
over.
up, did they? Yeah.
They come over looking from the house.
Yeah.
Two guys come over with a stretcher
Yeah.
to see if there were any injured there, anything
Yeah,
they could do
yeah.
or could help.
Isn't that wonderful? You carried stretcher bearers with you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they come over, and they took him first. He was a chap from Cape Breton.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
I think his name was Campbell, if I remember
Yeah.
right, but I forget now.
Yeah.
But I don't know how badly he was hurt, but he couldn't help himself. But
Yeah.
so I got him out of there, and they said for me to wait,
Yeah.
and they'd take him over to the house, and then they'd come back and get
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you won't.
No, sir.
I trust my feet better than yours.
Yours, yes. Right.
So I said, I'm mobile.
Yeah.
The only thing is, when you go in that door, you leave the door open.
Open, right. Yeah.
And because I'm going to be coming once you're in, I'm going to be coming, and
Yeah.
I'm going through that door
Yeah.
if I can get it.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, Germans were all around,
Oh, my gosh.
and I don't know why they.
Yeah. But you
Well,
ran
I guess
for
they
it.
don't expect you
Yeah.
to act that way.
No.
And so when they went to the door,
Yeah.
they left the door open,
Yeah.
and I took off, and it was about maybe 50, 70, 60, 70 feet.
Yeah.
And it was the fastest 60, 70 feet
I
there
bet
than
you.
a human being ever made. I
Oh.
dove through
Yeah.
the door,
Yeah.
just got nicely in there.
And now you have paramedics around or fellas that...
Well, they were just stretcher bearers. They had a little bit of
Yeah.
medical
But they'd look
thing.
at your wound and...
Yeah, they
yeah.
give you, they carried morphine with them and bandages
Right,
and so
yeah.
on. And
And then they got you off to a hospital, did they?
yeah,
Yeah. How would they do that? A truck or a
Jeep,
Jeep?
a
Oh,
Jeep, a
right.
truck, whatever.
Whatever was
Usually a
around,
Jeep
they'd put you in
first.
it and away you'd go.
They'd take you back out of
Yeah.
way out.
Where
of
was the
chute.
hospital, Bill?
The hospitals were usually the first ones you came to were a tent,
Oh, right.
quite a large
Yeah.
tent, and there were field hospitals, and
Yeah.
they would patch you up there,
Yeah.
give you a fistful of sulfa pills and
All right.
a drink of water,
And
and check your bandages, make
Yeah.
sure you were all right, and then
Yeah.
they'd put you on another vehicle and ship you back another few miles,
miles to
a couple miles to another one,
yeah,
and they gradually work you back until you got to a
big
base hospital.
Yeah, a base.
And
So where is this one now? That's the base hospital you got to finally?
I eventually ended up in that time I ended up in an English hospital at Ghent,
At Ghent. Ah.
and
yeah.
didn't make out too good there.
Didn't you?
The English hospitals are very regimental,
Oh, very.
and there were 4 Canadians in the ward, 3 other chaps and myself in the ward that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it was a day or so before I got there. They pat you up first, of course,
Yeah.
and then they give you a bed.
Yeah.
But in the morning, if you're what they considered an up patient, you could get up and move around
Yeah.
by yourself.
Yeah.
Then the bed was made, and you weren't supposed to sit on it or lay on it.
Oh my.
There was a chair there, and
Yeah. So you could
so
sit
if
in the
you were
chair.
an up patient, you sat in the chair, but
Oh,
you
my
used the bed to sleep in.
Gee, maybe you didn't feel like sitting in a chair.
That's
you know
right.
what? Yeah.
So the 4 of us, we didn't agree to that. We didn't know it at
Yeah.
first, but
Yeah.
we soon found out, because
Yeah.
after we were all in their shrapnel wounds,
Yeah.
and excuse me, and they patched us up, and they give us a place to sleep
Yeah.
and something to eat. And the next morning, we sat on the bed, and they were laid on to something.
They didn't like that.
And if a lady or female
Yeah.
sergeant major came in with an orderly
Yeah.
with her little suitcase, and she was the matron.
Oh.
She had a row of ribbons on her,
Yeah.
and a big iron cross or
Oh,
something
my
around her neck, and very regimental.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose she was a doctor, I don't know, but
Yeah.
she was in charge of that ward anyway. And she let us know that right quick.
Yeah.
And she told us we
Couldn't lie down.
realized then that all the Englishmen that were in there, and that
Seems strange, doesn't it, when you're wounded that you can't lie down?
no,
Yeah.
well, the rest of them,
Yeah.
they all stood up to attention when
Oh my
she
gosh.
came in.
That's regimental, all right.
Yeah,
Now, Bill, you got wounded again.
yeah, I got wounded again in the Hochwald Forest
Did you?
in Germany that time.
Well, let's go back. Now you returned to your unit
Yeah.
When you got this wound healed.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did that take?
Well, we were only in the hospital for about 3 days, and they put us out.
Not only wouldn't they let you lie down, they kicked you out. Yeah.
Well, we argued with her. We didn't agree with her
So yeah,
rules,
they were glad
so,
to see the back of you then.
so they just moved us out. They sent us again to
Yeah.
a holding unit, as
Oh,
they
yeah.
called it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And we were there for 4 or 5 days, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And or I was,
Yeah.
and I don't know how long the other chaps were.
Now, did you have any leave or anything?
No,
No.
not
Oh boy.
not up till that point.
Yeah.
And so they said I went back to my unit, to the regiment,
Yeah.
and I hooked up with them in another town. I don't recall the name
Yeah,
of
all
it.
right. Yeah.
In the rest areas, they're so-called that they bring you out
Yeah.
after a few weeks and you get,
Well, while you were convalescing, you repaired a house or something, didn't you?
after, in the spring, in the late winter.
Did you? Oh, yeah.
And
Did a little carpentry. You were waiting.
I'd done some carpentry work. We were in Germany then,
Were you? Yeah.
and waiting during the winter
Yeah.
months, and they got us lined up there just outside of Cleve, and the other German towns there, and they lined us up there, and or they had their whole half of the British or Canadian Army there, strung along for miles.
Yeah.
And where I was, we had our own vehicle. That time,
Yeah.
I had been transferred to a pioneer engineering unit, well, a platoon, where all tradesmen were.
Yeah.
And we traveled, we carried our equipment with us, our saws and
Did you?
hammers
Oh, my
and
gosh.
whatever you needed,
Yeah.
and demolitions
Yeah.
and flares and one thing and another that they used. And we carried that right in a 60 hundredweight truck and traveled with them. We were sort of we were infantrymen, but we were by ourselves.
I
And,
see.
We were used.
Now, is this this is in the wintertime?
Yeah, this is in the winter time.
That's not good
And
going, is it? No.
We were in right along by the Maas River,
Yeah.
if you know where
How's the wound feeling at this point?
the wound. The first one was
Yeah.
pretty well patched up, and
Healed. Yeah.
it they just leave shrapnel wounds unless they're obvious, unless they're in a danger.
They healed.
They just leave it in,
Do they? Oh.
and you heal over it, and
Yeah.
it moves around some.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as long as you're mobile, well, you're
You're okay.
You're okay.
Yeah. Right.
So-
So, anyway, now you're
we-
you're in this kind of carpentry unit, and you're moving around, are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we put in the winter on
Yeah.
along there and in
Yeah.
and out of the lines,
Oh, yeah.
and we gave us some leave
Did they?
at that time.
Oh, they're all hurt. You're
Yeah.
now wounded
Yes, they were.
and running around and
They give you-
getting shot at. Finally, they give you some. Where'd you go on your leave?
I went to Antwerp,
Antwerp. Oh,
Yeah.
that was interesting.
and you don't go and leave as a unit. You
No.
go like one or two guys.
Guys at a time.
And,
I know. Yeah. And you didn't. They don't give it for you long either.
No, they
No.
give you a few days.
Yeah.
They put you on a truck and take you. And,
That's
And,
it. Say, stop
yeah.
here, have a good time. We'll be
Yeah.
back in a few minutes.
yeah, sort of. Like
Yeah.
that. It went according to seniority, I guess.
Yeah.
Whoever,
Yeah.
I'd been there longer than most guys. And,
Yes, you were, by
and,
George. Anyway, so now you had the leave, and you came back, and when did you get wounded again?
Well, after they knocked our house down, that to be fixed up,
Oh, yes.
and
they bombed you, didn't they?
they bombed.
Yeah.
Well, our own people.
Your own
they
people
didn't bomb us.
Oh, you needed
But
that.
they brought the guns up
Yeah.
behind us, so they were getting ready for this big spring offensive, you see.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Move right into the Rhine River into
Yeah.
Berlin. So,
Yeah.
and they moved all their heavy guns, the light ones, and then
Yeah.
the middle-sized ones, and then the big ones. There,
Yeah.
rows, 3 rows in back of us.
Yeah.
And one night they lined up, I don't know how many guns, they had all
Yeah.
kinds of them. They had the
Yeah.
whole best part of the Canadian Army
Army.
was strung there. And
Yeah.
the Pathfinder came over.
Yeah.
A few of them planes, no drop flares.
Yeah.
Right behind them came heavy bombers and mid-sized bombers,
Yeah.
and the big ones. And they started bombing Cleve and these other towns
Yeah.
in front of us that were garrison towns.
Yeah.
And the guns started firing, and
Oh.
the little ones fired.
Yeah.
The bigger guns fired
Fired
over
you,
top
yeah.
of them.
Oh dear.
And the concussion from the bombs landing a couple miles and mile or so in front of us,
Yeah.
shells coming over us from behind,
Oh my
you couldn't
God.
walk.
I bet you couldn't. No.
The ground would just
We're shaking like this.
Yeah, you
isn't
try
it?
to walk and you
Yeah.
fall down.
Anyway, you got wounded again. We've got to get on.
Yeah, I got into Germany,
Yeah.
and I got as far as the Hochwald Forest, and we started in through there.
Yeah.
That was a major place that they had to take,
Yeah.
and I just we broke into there. We started in there
Yeah.
before daylight, and first dawn they call it.
Yeah. First dawn, right.
And we got to a start line, and
Yeah.
we made our move into the forest, and they had half the German army in there waiting for us again.
Oh
So
my gosh.
they were in the trees, under the trees, they were in the bushes, they were everywhere,
Oh my.
and with machine guns and rifles and everything.
So they
And they met us there.
Yeah.
So that's when I get hit again.
Did
But
you?
I get hit that time with a rifle bullet.
Did you? Oh.
And got that in the upper leg here. And
Upper leg. Oh.
knocked me down,
Yeah.
and
Stretcher bearer again.
stretcher bearers came, and they
Yeah.
wanted to take me back. And I said, no,
Yeah.
I'd take myself back. So I crawled, and I didn't, stand up where you're
No.
suicide. So
Sure.
I dragged myself. My leg wouldn't work very good, but
Oh,
my right,
that wouldn't.
the other one did,
Yeah.
and my arms did.
What did you have against stretcher bearers? Yeah. I mean,
It
here you
gives
want to
you
crawl
kind of
where
a-
you could have got a ride.
Yeah. But stretcher bearers waited in the Hochwald Forest.
Oh.
Usually stretcher bearers weren't bothered
Oh,
by either side.
right.
And they had a red cross on. They
them,
were
yes,
carrying a
yeah,
stretcher.
they're carrying
They
a
were.
stretcher, which is
They
awful.
weren't a fighting man,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they were quite safe as a rule.
Yeah.
But in the Hochwald Forest, for some reason, stretcher bearers were taken out as well.
Oh my gosh, they were shot at too.
They did, and if they were carrying a wounded man, and they ran into machine gun fire,
the wounded man would get it too.
got
yeah.
it again.
I could see why you crawled. You don't need
So
to
I
explain
said,
anymore.
no, sir, I'll
Yeah.
take myself out.
Yeah.
And so I crawled as far as I could until
Yeah.
I just couldn't get any further.
Yeah.
But that time,
You were out.
I was out of the
direct line of fire.
worst part of it,
Yeah.
and they took me back,
Yeah.
put me in the house, and then gradually they put me in the basement of a house
Yeah. And
with
you
a
got
German
back to-
soldier.
Now you get back to another hospital. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They gradually worked me back to another hospital, and
Yeah.
that time I ended up in Bruges.
In Bruges in
Belgium.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
yes. Okay. And then you had a more serious wound this time.
Yeah,
Yeah. So they weren't going to patch you up and send you back to the front again.
Oh no.
No.
Well, they would have if the war had continued, but the war ended.
Or ended when? Oh, did it?
I
was going to ask you. It
I
must be
got out
getting
of
near.
the hospital, and they sent me
Yeah.
to a convalescent hospital in a place called Knock-a-Samar.
Yeah.
And after you get out of the hospital of a major
Yeah.
problem, where you're, like a
Yes. Yes.
trigger wound,
Yeah.
you go to a convalescent hospital, and they
Yeah.
give you treatment, and
Yeah.
they get you so you're fit to go back again.
Back again.
But while I was in the convalescent place in
Yeah.
Knock,
The war.
the war ended.
Oh. So now you get out of there, and you go back to.
Well, I had my choice.
Yeah.
When the war was over, they gave me a choice. I could go back to the Black Watch, the regiment I served with.
Yeah.
But they also told me that they weren't in wait to go home.
Yeah.
But they weren't coming home until the end of October or into November.
Oh.
Or I could come home with the West Nova Scotia Regiment, which was my home regiment.
Yes.
And they were coming home the end of September.
So which one did you take?
So
You took.
there was no question.
No question. No, sir.
So I came home with the West Novas,
Yeah.
and I ended up in Halifax on the first day of October,
First day of October.
45.
And you came back on the Ile de France.
Yeah, came back on the Ile.
That was nice. Nice boat. Yeah.
Much better coming back than it was
I
going.
bet it was. But a lot of fellows still on board here.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
many would
there
be?
was
2,000-3,000?
I thought it was going to upset when we came into Halifax. I
Really?
tried to get into the wharf.
Wharf. Oh, yeah.
There was 5,000 people on it.
On it. Oh, and they
Troops.
all went to one
And
side.
they all went to
Yeah.
one side in the
Surely,
boat.
yeah. Yeah. Now,
So-
you set sail from Liverpool, I bet, because that's where she sails
Yeah.
from a lot. Yeah. All right. So you came back home. Boy, what a service you had. I guess you wouldn't want to go back and do that again.
Not really.
Not really, no. Okay,
But it
so
wasn't.
you got home, and this was 1945,
Yeah.
and you got home in October, and you were discharged.
And
Few weeks
we're
later.
given 30 days leave.
Were you?
And
Yeah, oh yeah, to get
So
home
I-
leave.
was home till the end of October, 1st
Did you?
November.
Yeah,
And I went back to Halifax and
Yeah.
spent about a week there.
put the uniform on, went back to
Yeah.
Halifax.
And was discharged.
Yeah. In
I was
Halifax?
supposed to, yeah,
Yeah.
I was supposed to go to Camp Hill before I was
To be
discharged.
examined, your wounds
Yeah.
to be examined, yes. Yeah.
But I talked my way out of that. I said I'd come to Camp Hill, just let me get out and get myself a job, and
Yeah.
I'll go to Camp Hill some other time.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So I didn't go to Camp Hill.
So you got out,
And so
discharged,
after
got out.
I was out about a year later,
Oh, did you? Yeah.
and I walked out of Camp Hill.
Did you too?
And
Oh, yeah.
that didn't set too good on
Yeah,
them.
oh, that was like the.
So I didn't see any more at Camp Hill. They wrote me a letter from Ottawa,
Did they?
and they told me,
Wouldn't they let you lie on the beds there, or what was it?
yeah, well, they kept me. They took some shrapnel out,
Yeah.
and they kept me down there for, well, a couple of weeks. Well, about 10 days, actually. And it wasn't a major,
Yeah.
a major surgery. I wanted to be home, and I was been working at Greenwood at that time.
Were you? Yeah.
And I could see no point in staying in Camp Hill Hospital. There was
No.
nothing wrong with me. It
No.
was just a little bandage.
Yeah, I understand.
But they wouldn't. The doctor down there, the surgeon that operated on me, and I asked him to give me
Yeah.
my relief. And he told me, he said, "No, stay with us. You haven't. Spend some time. Spend a couple months with us."
Oh.
I said, "No way."
Yeah.
So I said, "I want to spend a couple of months."
Yeah.
But he wouldn't give me my release,
So you just left.
so I left.
Uh-huh.
And a week or so later, I
You
get a
get it.
letter from Ottawa. It says, "Don't call us, we'll call you."
Oh, right.
thing.
Yeah.
So it went on for about 40 years. They put my records in the archives, and finally I get sick. And
Yeah.
my own doctor sent me down there.
Did he? Did he?
They had no record of me there.
Oh.
My records had been sent to
Sent
Ottawa.
Yeah.
So he told me when he sent me down, he told me to take my toothbrush and razor and my pajamas, because I'd probably be there for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I was there for about 30 minutes. They kicked me out.
Did they? Oh,
Yeah,
my
Phil.
gosh.
So that time I came home, and I
Yeah.
said I told my wife, "That's it. I'm not going back there again.
No.
And it was about that time I got that letter,
Yeah.
and so I didn't go back until I got so bad
Yeah.
that the doctors, they just literally took me back.
Did they?
And
Yes. Yeah.
when I got down there, when I finally eventually went back, well, I saw a lady doctor,
Mhm.
and she'd been around. She was quite old,
Yeah.
not as old as I was, but
Yeah.
she wasn't young and I think she had been a military doctor.
Uh-huh.
She seemed to know her way around the military. So she read my records and my files and asked me
Yeah.
some questions, and she was quite annoyed to think that they had let me go
Oh, of course.
for that long without,
Yeah.
because with
Looking after
wounds, you're supposed to be checked
you. Yeah.
every year. Well, listen,
Right, yeah.
about 40 years has gone
my
by.
gosh. Well, now, Bill, you're back in civilian life.
Yeah.
And you're back on the farm, are you? Or back carpentering?
Well,
You
I
mentioned
went to
Greenwood.
Greenwood. Yeah.
You went to Greenwood.
I went to
Yeah.
Greenwood.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was just out about 2 weeks when I went to Greenwood. I went as a carpenter.
And you went there for how long?
I spent pretty near 32 years there. I thought I'd spend the winter there, and then I could get a job in the spring.
And now, Bill, we're going to have to wind this up because we're kind of running out of time.
Oh.
But so you had a wonderful story. And how's your family? They're all right?
Oh, yes, they're fine.
Good,
yeah,
good.
Yes.
Your wife is still with us?
Yes, she's...
And your children have done well?
Yeah.
Yes? Well, you're looking very well, except you have a little breathing problem, like I do.
Yeah, and a heart problem and
Oh, well,
things. But other than that...
we're all getting up there. You know?
Yes, I realize that
The price
every
we
day.
pay for that racy life that we live.
Too
Yes,
much
well,
wine.
you're a wonderful, wonderful story. And I want to thank you very much for coming in
Thank you
and talking to us.
for listening to
Oh,
it.
yes. No, it's a wonderful story. And it will be hallowed by us always.
Well,
And
that's
I hope
good.
that you
I'm glad.
enjoy the tape and your family
Yes,
do when
I
you
do.
get it.
I will.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking today to William Richmond Carter. And when I'm finished, we're going to put some of his memorabilia on the tape, which you will be seeing along with a little reading that I might do, because he got a couple of wonderful letters. But we're going to stop this now. And before I go, I'd like to thank Eastlink. Now, Eastlink are our cable company who are so generous in helping us put these tapes together and doing these interviews in their studio. And the camera crews and the rest of the men are so helpful and so wonderful to us. And I'd like to thank our Legion itself, Branch 98, and Mr. Caldwell, Larry Caldwell, who is my producer on this venture. And I'd like to thank you for watching the tape. I hope you had as much pleasure out of it as I did doing it. Thank you. Try to imagine you're a young man, a carpenter, who lives in a small rural Nova Scotia community. Along with your carpenter work, you also pick apples in the fall to help support your wife and 3 young children. The year is 1942, and you are 25 years old. Over a period of time, you start thinking of signing up with the Army to fight in World War II. You talk this idea over with your wife and explain to her that you feel you need to offer your services to help defend your country. Canada has been in the middle of a Great Depression, and the family finances are very low, and the Army pay what seems to be a fortune, $96 a month. With your wife and children in mind and heart, You ship out to war. You ship out to war-stricken Europe. You face many fearful times as you and your Black Watch regiment fight your way through Holland, Belgium, France, and Germany. You yourself are a very quiet, gentle person. And to see comrades die one by one is almost more than you can bear. Not only are your friends injured or killed, but you are shot twice, once in the leg and once in the chest. When you return home 3 years later, your life has changed forever. Your babies are not babies anymore. They don't remember their daddy. Your wife has grown stronger and more independent. You come to realize that you and your family will have to get to know each other all over again. So many years have been lost. To this day, you still carry around bullets and shrapnel inside of you. And to this day, you still have the scars that will never fade, both inside and out. Now, this is the story of thousands of young men who risked their lives in the battles of World War II. But this particular story is the story of a very special man. My grandfather, Mr. William Richmond Carter. Thank you, Grampy, for making your country safe. I love you dearly, and I'm very proud of you. And what you're listening to was written by Jennifer Krause, aged 14, November 1994.
One, two, three, and then throw it.
Then it would explode.
It exploded quite often right in the air,
Yes, sure.
but close to the ground. So
Yeah.
it was coming daylight, and we knew that